Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive, the podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it.
We examine the pieces.
And expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
What if the male body image crisis isn't just about insecure men, but a perfectly engineered system designed to keep you perpetually dissatisfied and spending?
That is the core mission today. We are going to deploy the scalpel of critical theory, moving entirely past the superficial conversation about personal vanity, individual insecurity, or just simple psychological distress.
Right.
We are viewing the modern male obsession with the hypermuscular physique not as a collection of failures, but as a systematic exploitation mechanism.
One that sits right inside late consumer capitalism.
Exactly. It is, simply put, a profit-driven deception engine.
So today, we're going to map the target, really identify the symptoms and the scale of the damage.
Then we're going to systematically dismantle the 4 structural deceptions that keep this machinery running.
And finally, we'll provide the theoretical frameworks you need for what we're calling cognitive liberation, to help you understand who profits when you look in the mirror and feel like you're not enough.
This is not a conversation about self-love.
No.
It's a manual for system sabotage.
Okay, so to get started, we have to establish the sheer scale of this crisis. And when we use that word crisis, we're not talking about, the mild desire to lose 5 pounds before summer.
Not at all. We are talking about genuine clinical pathology, the dark side of aesthetic pursuit that our source material defines as the target of this systematic exploitation.
This is the eagle eye analysis, right? Mapping the vulnerability that the engine is built to monetize.
Precisely. And the data around muscle dysmorphia or bigorexia is, well, it's the canary in the coal mine here.
For anyone who might not be familiar, bigorexia is often called the reverse of anorexia.
Right.
It's this obsessive, crippling belief that your body is inadequately muscular or lean, no matter what the objective reality is.
And the prevalence rates should honestly shock you into realizing this isn't some random individual problem, it's a systemic outcome.
So what are we looking at?
Bigorexia affects a measured 5.9% of college-age students, which is already disturbingly high for such a specific disorder.
Yeah, it is high.
But here is where the engine's targeting mechanism becomes crystal clear. You have to look at the subpopulation that the fitness industrial complex relies upon.
Male weightlifters.
Male weightlifters. In those dedicated circles, the studies we've seen show that bigorexia prevalence just skyrockets. It hits anywhere between 13.6% and, in the most specialized groups, a terrifying 44%.
44%. Let that number just sink in for a second.
Yeah.
If you are a dedicated male weightlifter, statistically, you have almost a 1 in 2 chance of suffering from a debilitating mental disorder driven by this unattainable pursuit of muscle.
That is not an accident of psychology. It's a failure of environment. When nearly half of the participants in a specific activity are suffering from a distortion directly related to that activity's core goal, it tells you the system itself is toxic. It's structurally flawed.
It means the standard has been set so impossibly high that even the people who devote their lives to it still believe they're failing.
And the lengths men will go to. It illustrates the level of psychological stress and systematic manipulation at play. The case study of Romario dos Santos Alves is a perfect example of the literal physical extremity of this pursuit.
This is the warning sign that the whole system just ignores.
Completely. Alves pursued mass at any cost. He injected Synthol, which is essentially just oil, like mineral oil, directly into his muscles.
And that's not a steroid, right? It's just a filler.
It's just a physical filler designed to create the illusion of size, and that led to severe calcification in his arms, causing painful muscle and tissue hardening. He narrowly avoided amputation.
And you just have to ask, what level of cognitive dissonance or social pressure does it take for a man to inject oil into his body to the point of necrosis just to look bigger?
The answer is the level engineered by the profit engine.
And that level of desperation is now filtering down to really vulnerable populations.
Teenagers.
Yeah, we're seeing increasing use of performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, among teenagers, the generation that grew up consuming the hyper-reality of Instagram.
We are talking about kids taking chemical shortcuts because the socially acceptable standard for a young male body is now defined by extreme muscularity and extreme leanness, a combination that is usually
only achievable through chemical intervention.
And the risks here are not some vague future health concern. They are severe, known, immediate risks.
Infertility.
Massive cardiovascular damage and premature death. The system is essentially asking young men to trade their long-term health, maybe even their lives, for a short-term aesthetic.
An aesthetic that allows them to gain social validation within this really toxic metric of masculine performance.
So how did the standard get so high? It didn't happen overnight. We have to unpack the historical progression of the unattainable ideal.
This shows how the goalposts haven't just moved. They've been aggressively, intentionally inflated, decade after decade.
Think of it like a scale shift in cultural normalization. Back in the 1940s, the ideal male body was, the Mr. America contestants.
And by today's standards, their physiques would be seen as extremely lean and fit. Impressive, for sure.
But naturally attainable, yet even then they were considered abnormally large by the general public. And crucially, drug use was minimal or non-existent.
The aesthetic use value, the strength, the functionality, was still tied to the appearance.
Then the 1970s arrived, and that brought figures like Arnold Schwarzenegger into the mainstream.
And suddenly, the acceptable scale of muscle mass just shifted dramatically.
These individuals were viewed as genetic freaks or as a pure spectacle, almost like carnival acts.
Right, and steroids had openly entered the conversation by then. It normalized a chemical baseline for what defined extreme muscularity.
The aesthetic began to detach from natural attainment. It was the beginning.
By the 1990s, that ideal became mainstream and, I think, much more insidious.
We're talking about Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
That was the look. The absolutely jacked and shredded look that crossed over from bodybuilding into popular cinema. It wasn't just spectacle anymore. It was the look of the anti-hero, the desirable male lead.
And that look often included drug use, but crucially, it was systemically denied or downplayed.
Which is key.
The goal was now sold as achievable through dedication alone. It made the pursuit a moral imperative, not a chemical one.
The 2000s just cemented the impossibility. Think Gerard Butler in 300.
That defined the truly unattainable ideal. The preparation for those roles, which was highly publicized, involved training regimes of up to 6 hours a day, alongside extreme calorie restriction.
The message basically shifted from, you can look like this, to, you must devote your entire life, 6 hours a day, every day, to looking like this, and maybe then.
Maybe then you'll be ready for the screen for 30 seconds.
The expectation became completely pathological.
This history just shows us the goalposts are not moving by chance. They're being actively pushed further and further away by the economic imperative to ensure dissatisfaction. We see this confirmed not just in actors, but in manufactured culture itself. A 2006 study showed that action figures toys marketed to boys grew measurably more muscular over a 25-year period.
And the James Bond physique is the perfect barometer of this. You track 007 from the lean, functional, martini-drinking spies of the 1960s where fitness just meant competence,
to the bulky, hyper-muscular heroes of the 2000s and 2010s where fitness means looking like you could crush a small car.
The cultural standard has just demonstrably shifted towards simultaneous bulk and extreme leanness.
So if that historical progression laid the structural groundwork, the modern engine finds its turbocharge in social media amplification and deceptive practices.
This is the delivery system for that hyper-ideal.
The core mechanism is algorithmic reinforcement. Social media doesn't reward reality, it rewards spectacle.
Right. We saw this in that 2020 Instagram study, which confirmed that posts depicting high muscularity and extreme leanness, the peak aesthetic, which is often drug or filter enhanced,
it receives significantly more engagement. The algorithm ensures the unattainable ideal is prioritized in your feed, which makes it seem like it's the norm.
And the influencers who deliver this content are not just fit, they are masters of optical illusion.
Absolutely. They deploy a sophisticated, deceptive toolkit every single day.
We're talking about strategic lighting, right? Key lights placed high to maximize definition and shadow.
Aggressive pumping sessions right before the camera rolls to push blood into the muscle and maximize size.
And camera angles, specifically low and wide, which radically changes the apparent width of the shoulders and the taper of the waist.
Not to mention pre-photo fasting and dehydration to achieve that unnatural leanness. And of course, pervasive photo and video editing software that stretches, smooths, and filters reality into oblivion.
And the result is what you call the relatable but fake natural look.
Which is the most marketable commodity in the fitness world. If an influencer were honest and said, yeah, I achieved this look through PEDs, extreme dieting for a moment in time, or surgery,
they couldn't sell their $49 protein powder or their generic workout program.
The economic incentive is absolute. The lie is the product packaging. The product has to be sold as achievable through the legal, purchasable means being promoted, the powder, the blend, the guide. even when the physique is actually drug-enhanced, condition-specific, or digitally filtered.
The system demands deception.
To maintain the profitability of the unattainable ideal.
So we've mapped the crisis. Now let's use the scalpel for the structural analysis. We need to dismantle the 4 core deceptions that guarantee this perpetual customer churn and keep that profit engine humming.
Let's do it. We start with deception number 1, the crisis of aesthetics, or the moving goalposts.
And the mechanism here is this calculated historical manipulation through constantly inflating physical ideals, which ensures the aesthetic goal is never, ever truly reached.
It creates the illusion of a horizon you can sail toward, but that horizon is mathematically designed to recede faster than you can move.
And the vulnerability it exploits is our assumption of linear progress.
Exactly. We are wired to believe that effort equals result. That if we just train harder or buy the next must-have pre-workout, we will eventually attain the ideal.
But that completely ignores the foundational reality that the ideal is engineered for perpetual consumption.
You aren't failing. The system is succeeding at keeping the goal out of your reach.
To really understand the ruthlessness of this mechanism, you can look at the sharp parallel in the female beauty industry.
For over a century, the fashion and diet industries have systematically manipulated the ideal of female thinness. They've made it progressively more severe and unattainable, moving from curvy to waifish to athletic but tiny.
Depending on what the market needs to sell next.
Right. And the resulting insecurity fuels these billion-dollar industries of diet products, cosmetic surgery, and restrictive clothing.
It's the same playbook.
It is the exact same playbook. The power beneficiary is the entire fitness industrial complex. If men collectively decided, you know what, my physique provides me with excellent function, I am healthy, and I am muscular enough.
The multi-billion-dollar market for superfluous supplements, proprietary training apps, and sponsored content collapses overnight.
The engine cannot afford contentment.
Which leads us right into deception number 2. The fake Natty as systemic product. The bad apple fallacy.
This one is crucial because it individualizes a systemic economic problem. The problem isn't the single influencer who denies using PEDs.
No, the problem is the structure that requires that denial to maintain market standards.
The economic logic is inescapable. Honesty about using performance-enhancing drugs is inherently unmarketable if you're trying to sell a product that promises the same results legally.
So the lie, the concept of authenticity or being natural, it has to be commodified and sold as achievable without illegal or chemical means.
The lie is literally factored into the business plan.
But this deflection preys on a cognitive vulnerability by focusing all the blame and consumer anger on the bad apple influencer who lied.
The system redirects scrutiny away from the true architects, the industry that demanded the impossible aesthetic in the first place, and the platforms that prioritize it.
You're encouraged to hate the messenger, not the message or the source of the message.
It is profoundly cynical. You can see a parallel system in the political demagogue who poses as a man of the people.
Right. Channeling popular frustration toward a convenient scapegoat.
Be it immigrants or other politicians or the media, while simultaneously serving the elite economic interests that fund their operation, the anger is redirected away from the true power structure to protect the status quo.
The lying influencer is just the demagogue of aesthetics.
Exactly.
So when men inevitably burn out on this impossibility, the system has to have a containment strategy.
And it does. This is deception number 3, the pacification of self-acceptance. We call this the co-opted rebellion.
This one is maybe the sneakiest of them all because it uses the language of mental health and self-care against you.
It's brilliant in its cynicism. When an individual's rational mind begins to challenge the external environment, the pathological demand for six-pack abs and massive shoulders, the system co-opts that rebellion.
It prescribes an individualistic solution.
Yeah.
It says you need more inner work or you just need to accept yourself.
And this is its primary control function. It transforms people who are having a rational, proportional, and frankly healthy response,
which is dissatisfaction with an engineered impossibility,
into self-regulating subjects. Instead of questioning the external environment that causes the frustration, you're told to manage the frustration internally through mindfulness, acceptance, or therapy focused on you.
You're contained.
Yes.
And you're neutralized as a systemic threat.
The vulnerability exploited here is that this process pathologizes rational human responses.
Yep.
If I walk into a highly manipulative environment designed to make me feel small, and I feel small, that's not a mental illness. That's a direct response to a hostile environment.
But the system says, no, your body is fine, but your mind is broken. Stop focusing on the outside world and just focus on your breathing.
And the parallel system here is the corporate mindfulness program.
Oh, perfect example.
Toxic, understaffed, high-stress workplaces refuse to change the environment, refuse to hire more people, or increase pay or reduce hours, and instead, they institute mandatory wellness seminars.
Or they offer free access to meditation apps.
They're managing toxic workplace stress instead of fixing the toxic workplace itself.
The fitness industry does the exact same thing. It manages the stress of unattainable perfection instead of dismantling the standard of perfection.
Which brings us to our final pillar of the engine, deception number 4, the equivocation of health. This is the semantic trap.
This mechanism relies entirely on exploiting semantic confusion. It deliberately blurs the line between a purely aesthetic goal and genuine long-term wellness.
The industry is selling pure aesthetics, often at the expense of health, but it's doing it under the virtuous banner of living a healthy lifestyle.
Let's do a physical reality check, though. That bodybuilder physique, achieved through chemical means and extreme, rigid dieting, often correlates with serious physical and functional risks.
We're talking chronic joint stress, massive cardiovascular strain from hyperextended muscle mass, and obsessive behaviors that destroy social connections, gut health, and mental plasticity.
And the vulnerability exploited here is the conflation of appearance with virtue. Because we culturally value the appearance of low body fat and high muscle mass, the industry is able to sell this maximum aesthetic achievement as being equivalent to optimal longevity or functionality.
It is selling virtue signaling dressed up as medical advice. The goal is to look like you could lift a truck, even if your mobility is compromised and your cholesterol is through the roof.
We see this same semantic trap in the parallel system of wellness food products.
All the time.
You go to the grocery store, you see products plastered with buzzwords like natural, clean, or superfood.
These marketing terms are designed to give you a feeling of moral superiority about your consumption, while often masking fundamental nutritional deficiencies, excessive sugar, or cheap bulk fillers.
They sell the aesthetic virtue of health, not the substance of it.
So to recap part 2, the entire machinery is built on 4 interlocking gears. Create the unattainable standard, aesthetics, mask the necessary chemical input, fake Natty, pacify the rational dissent, self-acceptance, and cloak the entire destructive process in moral righteousness, health.
The machine is perpetual.
So we can't grasp the full extent of this engine without applying the critical frameworks that expose the deeper philosophical rot inherent in this culture.
This crisis isn't just a commercial scam. It's a manifestation of a kind of cultural decay.
And we have to start with Baudrillard's simulacrum. This is essential for understanding why men feel they can never truly achieve the body they see online.
Baudrillard wrote that in our media-saturated age, we enter hyperreality, a state where the copy or the simulation becomes more real, more desirable, and more influential than the original reality itself.
In the fitness context, the influencer body is the hyperreality.
It's a copy.
It's a copy pumped using short-term metabolic tricks, strategically angled to exaggerate size, chemically optimized through an entire drug protocol, and digitally filtered to smooth and define without a corresponding original reality that an average, healthy, natural man could ever achieve consistently.
And this manufactured image becomes the ideal. Its unattainability is its power.
The cultural consequence is profound. You, the listener, are striving for a simulacrum, a state that exists only under highly specific, controlled, and momentary conditions, usually for about 30 seconds during a 6-hour photo shoot.
Think about the specific construction of that illusion. The use of specific color grading to deepen muscle shadow.
The fasting beforehand to completely empty glycogen stores for maximum vascularity, the dehydration, often to dangerous levels.
And when you, the consumer, try to recreate that image in the real world, say, after a month of dedicated dieting and training, you look in the mirror, you're disappointed.
Your mirror image does not look like the filtered, pumped, chemically optimized image you saw on your phone.
And the body you inhabit fails to live up to the image you were sold.
That disappointment then triggers the next purchase, the next step in the cycle, because you believe you are the failure, not the simulated reality.
You're chasing a ghost that exists only in pixels and performance-enhancing chemistry.
Now let's apply Marxist alienation theory, adapted for the 21st century body as capital.
Marx talked about the worker being alienated from the product of their labor. Here, the individual is alienated from their own physical function and utility.
We can use the contrast between use value versus exchange value. The use value of fitness is straightforward. Genuine health, functional strength, utility, longevity.
Your body should be an instrument for life, for labor, for enjoyment.
But the economic system alienates fitness from this practical function. It redirects all that effort entirely towards social media clout, aesthetic display, and sponsorship deals. The exchange value.
Can we anchor that with an example?
Sure. Imagine two men training. Man A is training to be strong enough to hike 50 miles with a heavy pack and help a friend move house. He is focused on use value.
Right. Man B is training to achieve 7% body fat for a photo shoot, restricting his caloric intake to the point where he is irritable and weak, but looks visually defined. He is focused purely on exchange value.
His body is no longer an instrument for life. It is optimized for market performance.
The consequence is the complete commodification of the body. Your physique itself becomes capital. It has to be optimized, measured, and managed for peak market performance, whether that market is Instagram clicks or attracting a partner based on aesthetic presentation or securing a supplement sponsorship.
And this introduces a really perverse form of labor exploitation.
It does. The individual becomes both the exploited laborer, putting in the 6 hours a day of training, the restrictive, often unhealthy dieting, the financial investment in supplements, and expensive gear.
And they become the capital in their own personal production process.
You are paying for the privilege of exploiting your own time, energy, and physical health just to create a piece of aesthetic capital. And when you view these mechanisms through that structural lens, the predictability is just chilling. This isn't a unique phenomenon at all.
Not even close. It's simply the latest application of the consumer capitalist playbook. A 4-step sequence used across virtually every industry that targets human insecurity.
Step 1. Create insecurity.
The engine must manufacture a perceived deficiency. For men, this means the constant inflation of the ideal physique, making normal, healthy bodies seem inadequate. The ideal is shoved in your face via the algorithm, and suddenly your normal body is defined as a problem.
Step 2. Sell the solution.
Offer a product or service promising resolution for that manufactured deficiency. This is the supplement stack, the exclusive training program, the detox tea, the personalized coaching that promises to unlock the hyper-aesthetic.
Step 3. Move the goalposts.
Ensure the solution is either temporary, incomplete, or rapidly rendered obsolete by the next inflated standard. Once you get moderately fit, the new message is, now you must be shredded, now you must be bigger. The failure of the solution drives the churn.
And step 4. Monetize anxiety.
Sell the next solution for the newly created problem. The dissatisfaction loop is a profit feedback loop. The more anxiety you feel about your perceived failure, the more secure the profit stream becomes.
And just to prove this is systemic design, we can look at the industry parallels table and see the same control mechanisms across other sectors.
In fitness, as we've discussed, the insecurity is inadequate muscle mass, the solution is supplements and programs, and the key control mechanism is the aggressive inflation of aesthetic ideals.
And you contrast that with the fashion and diet industries, which have targeted women for decades.
Same playbook. The insecurity is an imperfect body shape or weight. The solution offered is diet products, weight loss surgery, fat burners. And the control mechanism is photo editing, model selection that promotes genetic outliers, and the construction of that same hyper-real, impossible aesthetic standard.
You can even see it in the broader wellness industry.
Absolutely. The insecurity is just defined differently using philosophical language, inauthentic living, or spiritual disconnection.
And the solution is mindfulness apps, expensive retreats, or self-optimization routines.
The control mechanism, the commodification of authenticity itself, turning genuine emotional and spiritual growth into a recurring paid subscription service.
And finally, the beauty industry, especially when targeting aging.
The insecurity is the inevitable aging appearance. The solution is anti-aging products, invasive cosmetic procedures. And the control mechanism is the relentless universal obsession with youth, enforced through media and cultural narratives.
So across every single one of these industries, the 4-step playbook, create deficiency, sell solution, move goalposts, monetize anxiety, it remains identical.
This is not a series of individual missteps. It is the wildly successful operational logic of an economic system.
So if our analysis holds that this is all a successful economic system designed to harvest and monetize insecurity, then the solution can't be found by just, seeking better supplements or harder training within that system.
No, we have to focus on cognitive liberation.
The engine relies entirely on you accepting what we're calling the false dialectic, the trapped choice.
This is the system's reliance on giving you two predetermined, seemingly opposite choices, both of which are completely non-threatening to its continued existence. It's an illusion of agency.
Option A is the path of obsessive pursuit.
You double down, you buy the new supplement stack, you enter the cycle of extreme dieting and pumping to achieve the simulacrum. This makes you the perfect customer, perpetual, motivated, and highly profitable.
Option B is the retreat into passive self-acceptance.
You get burned out, you give up on the gym, you retreat into self-help that tells you to manage your feelings of inadequacy.
And while that sounds positive, the system co-opts it to turn you into a pacified subject. You start managing your inner world instead of challenging the external demand.
You cease to be a spending customer, but you also cease to be a systemic threat.
And the really profound benefit for the system is that both options keep you contained.
You are either perpetually spending money and energy on the ideal, or you are perpetually self-regulating your frustration away from the structures that created it.
You never achieve the third option.
Revolutionary rejection.
So the way out is to exploit the strategic vulnerabilities of the deception engine. The machine is sophisticated, but it has weak points.
Weak points that we can use to break its operational logic.
The primary weakness is existential, right?
It is. The system absolutely requires the belief that your body, as it naturally exists, is inherently a problem that requires an external solution, a product, a drug, a program.
If you stop seeing your body as fundamentally flawed, the engine has nothing to latch onto. It stalls.
The secondary weakness is intellectual. It relies entirely on the false dichotomy between obsessive pursuit and passive acceptance.
Once you realize those two are the only choices the system provided, you can consciously step outside that trap.
And pursue functional, use-value goals that have nothing to do with market appearance.
And the tertiary weakness is a moral one. It depends entirely on conflating high aesthetics with virtue or health.
If you successfully decouple that shredded look from genuine long-term functionality, the moral imperative, the idea that you should look that way, it just disappears. The pressure melts away.
So this all brings us to the liberation strategy, rejecting the parameters.
Cognitive liberation requires rejecting the system's fundamental premises entirely. We need to stop asking the tactical questions that the industry wants us to ask.
How can I look better? Or which supplement works fastest?
And start asking the structural questions.
We have to ask, who profits from my insecurity?
That is the crucial first step. It shifts the focus away from internal failure and toward external manipulation. It turns your dissatisfaction into an economic inquiry.
Next, what social and economic functions does this crisis serve?
This forces us to see the bigger picture. Why are movie stars suddenly all hypermuscular? Because it costs the industry nothing to hire men who are already heavily invested in aesthetic capital, which reinforces the ideal that sells products for the industry sponsors.
You connect your morning workout to global market forces.
And the most critical question that attacks the ideological foundation: why is masculine worth tied to physical appearance at all?
Masculinity was traditionally tied to competence, character, providing, defending. When did it become solely about the percentage of body fat visible on your abdomen?
Once you dismantle that premise, the engine loses its fuel.
And this new framework allows us to redefine our relationship with our bodies. We move away from viewing the body as a product to viewing it as an instrument.
We have to consciously shift from viewing the body as a temple optimized for public display making and a piece of social or economic capital, and just reject that entire premise.
We shift from viewing the body as a perpetual project to be constantly managed, measured, and perfected, which is the source of endless anxiety and chronic dissatisfaction.
We shift to viewing the body as an instrument for action, for experience, for meaningful labor, and for pleasure.
The focus moves entirely from what it looks like to what it does.
Utility completely over vanity. Competence over aesthetic capitalization.
So finally, the resistance modalities. If you want to fight back against this engine, the actions have to be systemic, not personal.
First, conceptual destruction. We must continuously expose the chemical, digital, and historical manipulation that defines the ideal physique. We have to eradicate that ideal as a control tool by proving that it is chemically false and economically mandated.
Second, economic divestment. Withhold participation in money from deception-based markets.
Stop buying the supplements and programs sold by the fake natties. Invest your fitness dollars in things that enhance genuine function like better food, new experiences, or functional training tools.
Third, parameter redefinition. We have to proactively create and promote new, non-economic frameworks for understanding health and masculinity. This means valuing the capacity to perform a hard physical task or demonstrating resilience over achieving a low body fat percentage.
And fourth, system exposure. We must continuously reveal the profit-driven deception engine's operational logic to others, keep the magnifying glass focused on the structures, not on the individuals who are trapped within them.
The terminal analysis remains resolute. The body image crisis is not a widespread failure of individual willpower or some mass outbreak of personal insecurity.
It is the wildly successful, deliberate, and scalable operation of an economic system designed to harvest and monetize male insecurity for endless profit. Liberation requires rejecting the system's fundamental parameters entirely, not seeking better solutions within its confines.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. So we've torn apart the fitness industry's deception engine. Now the real question is, what is the one idea about your own body that you've accepted without question, that you're finally ready to put on the chopping block?
Let us know in the comments.
Question the narrative.
Deconstruct the dogma.
See the system.
See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical.